All right, welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at some additional configuration you can do inside of Ryujinx when you get a drive from RetroRig. Something that you have to do on your end just to make sure that your controllers and your graphic settings and everything are how you want them. So to do that, it's very easy. You go into settings, you make sure that your game directory, you can take note of that. So when you're adding new games and adding updates and whatnot, you know where your games live. That should be the same folder as your launch box or whatever front end you're using. If you get a drive from us, that's already set up for you, but just make a note of that um, so that you have reference for it for later. The first thing you're going to want to do is set up your controller or controllers. Now, this functionality is a little finicky on the most recent version of Ryujinx, where if you have multiple controllers connected, however they're reported by your operating system, is what Ryujinx uses to identify them. So if you have a controller that's player one, a controller that's player two, and then the player one controller disconnects, and then the player two controller disconnects, and they reconnect in a different order, now the player two controller may be player one. It can be a little frustrating, a little annoying, but if you're having issues with your controller, just double check these settings and that should be your solution. So right now you can see we don't have a controller connected. We can select our keyboard and we can emulate any number of different controllers here. I tend to keep it on Pro Controller for the games that I play, but you can select however you like, and you can select your key bindings here. So that's pretty simple if you want to use a keyboard. However, we can connect a controller and then you'll see that we have this controller listed here. And same thing as before, but now we have stick, dead zone, some things you may want to adjust here. Your buttons here, because the Switch flips the A and B and the X and Y from the normal Xbox setup. You may want to change those if that's confusing or your muscle memory doesn't work well with that. You can change that here, but you just want to make sure that you have your controller selected and you hit apply. Whatever you're emulating, whatever configuration you set here, you just hit apply to make sure that that's locked in. Now this controller will be recognized by Ryujinx as player one anytime it's connected. So that's really all you have to do. You can do that for up to 8 players. There's also handheld mode, which I haven't used much, but you can do that. You also have profiles. So if you have specific, one person who plays, they like their buttons switched, another person who plays doesn't. Those kinds of things. You can set up profiles there for different controllers. The other thing that you will want to check is your graphic settings. So the graphics backend can either be Vulkan or OpenGL or Auto. Um, I tend to use Vulkan because I have an NVIDIA GPU, but OpenGL tends to work better with older cards. Vulkan is generally just the best option most of the time if your machine supports it. I keep the defaults for shader cache and texture compression and all that. But something else that you may want to do if you are playing on an ultra wide is stretch to fit window. What that'll do is if you're on an ultra wide, it will put black bars at the top, but stretch the width to be the correct width, so you don't end up with black bars around the entire image, which is really good for playing on a TV. Um, Speaking of playing on TV, the other thing that you may want to set is your resolution scale here. This does impact performance, but I tend to play at 2x on my machine, and it does make it look a little bit better. You can adjust your other, anti-aliasing, scaling filter, any number of things here, like you would any normal PC game. Um, but yeah, so those are the settings that if you get a drive from us, or if you're just setting up your Unix for the first time, you definitely want to check those out. Make sure that they are to your specifications, or if you're having any issues, you can maybe go in here and change some of these, and that will help you troubleshoot. Just make sure that when you're done, you hit apply, and you should be good to go.